Mind? Some of us are trying to win a war here. Captain Eva Rostova didn't even look up from her screen as she snapped the words across the room. The war room was a cathedral of cold light, screens glowing blue, data flowing across panels, holographic maps pulsing with enemy movement. Every analyst sat strapped into their stations, eyes flicking through intel streams at machine-like speed. And moving quietly among them was a 78-year-old man carrying a thermal carafe of coffee. Thomas Whitfield. To most people in that room, he was just the coffee guy, a harmless old civilian hired to pour drinks and stay out of the way. He spoke little, moved slowly, and blended so seamlessly into the background that no one noticed him unless they needed a refill. He stepped beside Captain Rostova's desk. She didn't make eye contact. "Just leave the pot. We'll serve ourselves," she muttered. "It's faster." Lieutenant Mark Chun, fresh out of MIT, smirked from the next console. "We can't afford a 2-minute latency for a coffee run," he joked. They both laughed softly, the kind of laugh people use when they think the target can't hear or doesn't matter. Thomas heard. He simply didn't react. He set the carafe down gently and began to walk away, his worn shoes silent on the polished floor. As he moved, his eyes passed over the glowing war map. Drone feeds flickered. Battalion positions shifted. Signals intelligence updated in real time. Thomas understood all of it with a depth none of them could imagine, but they would never believe that. To them, he was invisible. A room blind to its own shadows. At the head of the room stood General Marcus Thorne, a man carved from discipline. He hadn't spoken in several minutes. He was processing data, strategy, and outcomes faster than any AI in the room. But he wasn't too focused to miss what he heard. He had registered the mocking tone, the arrogance, the disrespect. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Meanwhile, Thomas continued refilling mugs as he circled the room. A young sergeant nodded gratefully without looking away from his screen. Another analyst rubbed his temples in exhaustion. Thomas understood that stress, that quiet desperation, far better than anyone there. As Thomas neared Chen's station again, he overheard. "We need real intel on the ground. The old school stuff. You know, before tech made everything easy." Rostova scoffed. "Human intel is messy. Slow. Unreliable. All we need now is tech and the trigger puller." Chun chuckled, glancing at Thomas. "Imagine trying to run recon the way they did 50 years ago. No drones, no AI, just maps and mud. No wonder wars took so long back then." His tone was dismissive, careless. A footnote mocking the sacrifices of generations before him. Thomas's hand paused over a sugar packet. His face stayed calm. But inside him, something stirred. A distant drumbeat. An echo of rain, mud, fear, and brotherhood. He looked toward the general. Thorne's eyes were still fixed on the map, but he had heard every word. A bracelet from another life. As Thomas walked past Rostova again, she suddenly noticed his wrist. "What is that?" she asked sharply. "Some kind of retro fitness band?" Chun leaned over. "Looks like something from the Stone Age." Thomas looked at the band. Weathered leather. Cracked with age. Darkened by sweat, sun, and blood. "It's just an old bracelet," he answered quietly. But it wasn't. For a moment, just a split second, the war room dissolved around him. He was in a Huey helicopter. Rain slashing the metal. Rotors thundering. A young soldier beside him pressing the bracelet into his hand. "You make it back," the soldier shouted over the noise. "You tell them what happened here." A mortar hit moments later. The boy died saving him. Thomas never forgot. Arrogance hits the breaking point. Back in the war room, Rostova suddenly knocked over her coffee mug, spilling hot liquid across her datapad. "Damn it," she snapped, glaring at Thomas even though he was 10 feet away. "See what you did? You distracted me. Get over here and clean this up. And be careful, this is classified equipment, not a dinner plate." Chun joined in. "He's a liability, Captain. Replace him with a vending machine. It would be more efficient." Their frustration needed a target. Thomas was the easiest one. Thomas turned and began walking toward them, ready to clean the spill without a word. But he didn't make it. Because a voice cut through the room, calm, deep, and commanding enough to freeze every molecule of air. "Captain Rostova." "General Thorne." The entire room went silent. Even the server hum felt louder after the sudden stillness. Rostova froze mid-motion. General Thorne stepped forward, but his gaze wasn't on her. His eyes were locked on Thomas Whitfield. And then he said a single word that hit the room like a thunderbolt. "Nightwolf." The name that changed everything. Thomas stopped in his tracks. That name. He had buried it decades ago. Slowly he turned. Across the room, soldiers stared, confused, stunned. General Thorne continued, voice steady yet reverent. It's been a long time, Sergeant Major. Rostova blinked. Chun looked like he had been struck by lightning. General Thorne walked forward, his eyes never leaving Thomas. When I was a young intelligence officer, he said, your file was required reading. 200 pages, most of it blacked out. A ghost story, except it was real. He pointed to the holographic map. The doctrine these officers are using? The predictive models? The insurgent behavior algorithms? They exist because of you. They put my name on it, but the truth is, I learned it from your after-action reports. He turned to the stunned officers. You are using methods created by this man. And you mocked him. Then Thorne faced Thomas again, standing at attention. Operation Iron Shadow, 1968, he recited. You infiltrated the AV Valley alone. Mapped enemy supply lines. Saved the 101st Airborne from an ambush that would have wiped out a brigade. The room absorbed the words like blows. Operation Silent Talon, 1969. You rescued a captured American pilot without firing a single shot. Carried him for 2 days through enemy territory. Chen's mouth fell open. Rostova's face drained of color. General Thorne raised his voice. He pioneered the signals intelligence techniques your entire careers rely on. No drones. No satellites. Just a stolen radio, copper wire, and instincts sharper than any algorithm. His voice hardened. He didn't use an algorithm. He was the algorithm. Thorne stood straight. Sergeant Major Thomas Whitfield holds the Distinguished Service Cross, 3 silver stars, 4 bronze stars for valor, and a Purple Heart. And then, General Thorne barked. Room, attention. 20 soldiers snapped upright. General Thorne saluted Thomas, perfectly, formally, deeply. Permission to thank you for your service, he said. It is an honor to be in your presence. Thomas straightened slowly. For a moment, he wasn't the coffee guy. He was Nightwolf again. At ease, General, he answered softly. Justice and redemption. General Thorne faced Rostova and Chun, his voice ice-cold. You too are relieved of duty. Report for reassignment immediately. Your new post, the Historical Archives at Fort Leavenworth. 8 hours a day studying the men you dismissed. Chun lowered his head. Rostova fought tears. Thorne turned to Thomas. I apologize for their behavior. Thomas shook his head gently. No need, General. They're good officers. Just focused on the future. It's easy to forget the past when you're building what comes next. His forgiveness was more powerful than any punishment. 3 months later. In the base library, Captain Rostova approached Thomas. Her voice wavered. Mr. Whitfield. I'm sorry. For everything I said. Everything I assumed. Thomas smiled softly. We all have lessons to learn, Captain. The important thing is that we learn them. He tapped the leather bracelet on his wrist. The past isn't there to worship, it's there to understand. Rostova nodded, eyes burning with humility. Thank you, she whispered. She walked away changed. And Thomas Whitfield, Nightwolf, returned to his quiet reading, still the most dangerous and most honorable man in any room he entered.